Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2022-23 season. My name is Dan and today we are looking at the double game week fixtures in game week 20. Yes, the double game week fixtures have now been confirmed, so we're going to look through them and have a look at what kind of players we should be picking from each of the double game week teams. Should we be taking hits for them? Who should we be removing? Who should we be keeping? All of that good stuff. So if you do enjoy this one, please do make sure you leave a like. Please do subscribe if you're new around here. But without further ado, guys, let's get on with it. Alright, so first of all, here are the 4 teams with double game weeks this week in game week 20. As you can see, we've got Crystal Palace, Man City, Man United and Spurs. These are the 4 teams who all have their double game weeks, as you can see. Now, none of these were confirmed just a couple of days ago. Man City versus Spurs is only going ahead because neither Man City nor Spurs drew their FA Cup game. So this fixture can now go ahead. And Crystal Palace versus Manchester United, that was announced just yesterday evening as well. So lots of new information here for us, and we've got to be reactive, we've got to be on it, we've got to see what kind of players we should be going for from each of these teams. But let's just have a little bit of a closer look at these fixtures first. So out of these fixtures, I don't really feel like any of these teams have amazing double game weeks. They're all kind of tricky in their own way, and that's because all of these teams, or most of these teams, seem to be fairly big teams anyway. Man United and Man City and Spurs, obviously some of the bigger teams in the Premier League. And I look at these fixtures and I look at Man United and I feel like they probably have the best double game week pair of fixtures of all of these 4 teams, to be honest, because they play Man City at home and then they've got Crystal Palace, which is probably the easiest fixture of the 4 of any of these 4 teams that they have. We've got Man City here as well, who play Man United away, but then Spurs at home is kind of nice. Crystal Palace play Chelsea and Man United there, and finally Spurs play Arsenal against Man City, which is pretty much the worst possible double game week you can have. If you have to pick 2 teams to not play, it would probably be Arsenal and Man City right about now. So difficult double game week for Spurs, but that doesn't mean we can't pick some of the players from those teams. So these are the teams, I guess, in order of how much I rate their double game week. I don't think we need to go too heavy on all of these teams, but there are certainly some players we should definitely be going for. So we're going to go through all of the teams who have double game weeks and picking some players from each of those teams. As we've done before, guys, we are going to be ranking all the players from each of these teams into 3 categories: essential players, optional players, and punts. So we're going to pick a maximum of 5 players from each of the 4 teams, and we're going to rank them in order of, basically how essential are they optional, or are they actually a little bit risky to go for? Who do we like from these teams? And there's a few players I think we must have. And at the end of the video, we're going to rank all of the players finally, and I'm going to do the top 10 players for you guys to be picking for Game Week 20. My favourite top 10 players that I think you should be going for this week. So first of all, let's get Crystal Palace out the way and done with, because I don't really think there's many players we want to be going for this week from Crystal Palace. It's a double game week, yes, but it's a pretty weak double game week, and Crystal Palace are also a pretty weak team right now, and they haven't got too many FPL options that are doing too well. We have got Zaha here. He's probably the only attacking player who is getting any substantial numbers, but we know what Zaha is like. A little bit of a troll in FPL. Often we buy him in and he doesn't deliver what we hoped he would. He's got just as much chance of getting a red card or missing a penalty as he has scoring a goal or getting an assist, which is kind of the crazy thing that you have with Zaha, I guess. But yes, if you're going to go for anyone, it probably would be Zaha, but I don't really rate anyone from Crystal Palace. They're probably just an avoid in general. Man City, a little bit more interesting with their fixtures against Man United away and then Spurs at home. That Spurs at home game I do quite fancy for Man City, and even that Manchester United game, I feel like there could be a possibility that some of these Man City players could take advantage of that situation. So first of all, Erling Haaland, no surprise, he is absolutely essential to own this double game week. You absolutely must have him. I know most of you guys are going to have him already, but those of you who don't, this is the time to finally bottle it and get him. It's time, guys. And you can also think about triple captaining Haaland as well. I think this is a really good week for a triple captain on Haaland. He's playing against 2 defences that I think they can be counter-attacked potentially. I feel like they can be, got at. Spurs are not as strong of a defence as a lot of people think they are. Man United have improved defensively, but we've seen what Man City have done to Manchester United in the past. We've seen what Haaland has done to Manchester United already this season. So could he potentially repeat that? Could he potentially do very well over both fixtures? We also know right now that Haaland is fit. He is available, and he's probably not going to be rotated because there's no Champions League either. So it's a good chance to do that double game week, triple captain on Haaland now rather than later, because we know we're in a good situation with Haaland right now. Yes, further down the line, we might have a better opportunity with better fixtures, but at those times, maybe other chips are more valuable to use at those times, or maybe Erling Haaland is playing in the Champions League at the same time and maybe has his minutes reduced, or maybe he gets injured later down in the season. So it's kind of a stick or twist kind of mentality, but triple captain right now is definitely an option, and I don't say that lightly, because this is the first time all season I have said I've recommended to use any chips at all. This is the first opportunity, or the first opportunity in my opinion, to use a chip, and that is going to be a triple captain. That's the only chip I would consider using this week, and I would use it on Erling Haaland. There are some other players here, of course, that we should probably whiz through. I got De Bruyne here, 12.5 million, a decent option because we know he's pretty nailed on, and that's probably what we're looking for most of all with these Man City players, is trying to find someone who's nailed on, because if you haven't got a nailed on player, then you may as well just pick a single game week player instead, and it will give you less headaches in the future. And also, guys, we want to pick players who are nailed on, because in game week 23, Man City are going to have another double game week where they play against Arsenal and Aston Villa, or Aston Villa and Arsenal, should I say. So yeah, we're going to want to pick some Man City players. They've got 2 double game weeks in the next 4 game weeks, so we need to find some nailed on players. De Bruyne is going to be one of those players. After that, we want to look at some defenders, really, and in terms of defenders, it's really hard to pick out a player who is nailed on. In Man City in general, it's hard to pick nailed on players. They rotate a lot. Pep Guardiola hates FPL managers. We know this. These are facts. John Stones seems to be the most nailed on defender at Man City at the moment. He's playing the best in centre-back as well, having a really good season for Man City. And Man City's defensive numbers have looked really, really good since the break. The best of any other team in the Premier League. So, yeah, I want a Man City defender. John Stones is probably going to be the most safe, nailed on player to go for. We know what John Stones can do in terms of headed goals in those double game weeks as well. We've seen that before to a lot of success. And Ake as well, I think he's going to be fairly nailed on as well, and should play both of the double game week fixtures as well. But if you're just not into the Man City defenders, then maybe you could go for Ederson as well. He's a bit of a punt, just because going for a goalkeeper transfer is a punt in general, really. It's not really usually a useful use of a transfer, I guess. And the problem is with Ederson is he just does not get save points. He just does not get bonus points. So as soon as the clean sheet is gone, you're not really going to get anything else out of your Ederson, really. So yeah, bit of a punt in that regard. Lower ceiling than the likes of Stones and Ake, but he has at least got that fact that he is nailed on. So if you want to go for a goalkeeper instead, you just don't want to deal with the Man City rotation headache, then Ederson is your friend. And other than that, guys, I think that's pretty much it. Honestly, I would not really be going for many other players outside of this. I mean, there's an argument for Rico Lewis just because he's so cheap, but I can't even guarantee that he'll play both of the double game week fixtures. I know you guys are going to be wanting to ask about Mahrez or Foden or Grealish or Alvarez, but the fact that all of those players are in the conversation probably tells you the answer that you need to know, that these players are incredibly rotation risk, and it's going to be very difficult to pick that one player who plays both of these games or starts both of these games. There's a very good chance, very good possibility that none of those 4 wingers for Man City start both games. It's very, very possible. That's kind of what happens with Man City. We've got Bernardo Silva there as well, who can fill in at the wings. Gundogan, his underlying numbers are actually okay, and he seems fairly nailed on. So if you forced me to pick a cheaper midfielder for Man City, then I probably would have to say Gundogan, just because of the nailed onness, and his underlying numbers are very good. He's playing in a quite advanced position in this new Man City formation that they're playing at the moment. So yeah, Gundogan I prefer to all of the wingers, really, if you push me for an answer. But generally speaking, if you don't want to go for a De Bruyne, if you don't want to go for, like an Ederson maybe, honestly, just going for Haaland alone and maybe one defender is probably going to be good enough. I don't even think you have to triple up. I wouldn't force yourself to triple up anyway, but yeah, certainly some good picks for Man City, and they should be bringing in a lot of points in the double. Man United, okay, this is the new team that we only recently found out that they've got a double game week in game week 20. We kind of knew that there was a chance of this happening, but now we have it confirmed, which is just amazing. It's even showing up on the app and the website now, so you just can see it, you can visualize it, you can see your Marcus Rashford with the double game week. And if you don't have Marcus Rashford already, then now is the time to get him. Again, Marcus Rashford, counter-attacking football against Man City, that's going to be quite nice, really, you'd think. And Man City, although their defensive numbers have been quite good, they have been conceding the odd goal, and you'd expect that against an in-form Manchester United team who do typically like to play against Man City, fairly decent record against them. But you think maybe Rashford, with the form that he's in, could be the star of the show. Rashford, of course, took a penalty as well in the FA Cup a couple of days ago. So maybe Rashford is even going to be on penalties. That was with Bruno Fernandes on the pitch, by the way, guys. So quite significant. Possible that Rashford's on pens as well. And if so, great form, pens, counter-attacking football in double game week. Everything is going super well. Midfielder as well. Listed as a midfielder, so he's getting extra points for those goals. He's essential. He really is. Now, I would not really consider anything other than going for Rashford if you don't have him already. You know, take a -4 for him if you have to. Take a -8 for him if you have to, just to get Rashford in. I think you just have to do it at this point. You just have to kind of just stick your neck out and make it happen. We've got Luke Shaw here as optional, but I think even Luke Shaw is close to essential as well. He's been doing so well recently, picking up mad points. I'm so glad I got him in a couple of game weeks ago because he has been an absolute superstar. He's creeping up in price a little bit, but I wouldn't let that put you off. I still would rather go for him than any other Man United defender right now. So Luke Shaw is definitely still a player that you want to be picking up for the double game week. There are some other punts you can go for. Bruno Fernandes there is obviously an option. He is the creative mastermind for Man United, and he's very nailed on for game time as well. And Martial in the short term should be nailed on for game time as well, especially before Man United sign Wout Weghorst, but that's a story for another day. But yeah, Martial, if any of you guys actually managed to keep on to Martial, you actually didn't sell him last week, then I think you're probably going to feel pretty happy right now, because a double game week for him could be really nice. He's going to get opportunities to score. Will he finish in his chances? Maybe, but look, the double game week, the extra minutes available gives you the double the amount of chance to get those attacking returns. So it's really positive. And finally, I've got Diogo Dalot on here, who has returned from injury now. I would only go for Dalot over Shaw if you really can't afford to go for Shaw. Shaw is just too expensive for you. Or if you've already got Shaw and you're actually looking to double up on the Man United defence. I don't know how recommended that is, but it's something you could definitely consider doing. 4.7 million for Dalot, who does have really good attacking numbers as well. Could be pretty decent. Now, my only minor concern with Dalot is that because the two Man United double game week fixtures are quite close together, I do wonder, Dalot just returning from injury, whether his minutes will be managed, particularly as Aaron Wan-Bissaka has been playing very well for Man United recently. So it's not like Dalot has to play both of those games, particularly if they're trying to ease him back into the team. But could be wrong about that one. There's a good chance that Dalot does start both of these games. There's a good chance of a clean sheet against Crystal Palace. So, hey, could be really nice. Even attacking returns are very much on the cards there as well. I like it. In general, I like it. I think Dalot is definitely an optional punt that you could go for your team as well. Finally, Spurs, and there's only one player I'm really seriously considering from this team, and that is Harry Kane. I think he should definitely be a player you're thinking about right now. He's just been in such incredible form recently. I mean, he's been in incredible form all season, really, and he's kind of gone under the radar a lot, and not actually that many people own Harry Kane, which kind of feels a bit wrong because he's been absolutely smashing it. He's the second highest scoring player in FPL right now, and therefore the second best player after Haaland, the number one player after Haaland, if you put it that way. So yeah, definitely a player we want to be considering even on a single game week. And although this double game week seems weak on the face of it, Kane has a phenomenal record against Arsenal, and Spurs in general are a bit of a bogey team for Man City as well. Spurs often do actually get a good result against Man City and potentially score a couple of goals there. So that's definitely something to consider when you're thinking about Harry Kane. 2 game weeks to be getting penalties in as well. That's always nice to have. Even, you know, if you don't think there's a very high chance of a penalty in an individual game, you double the chances, then that's pretty good as well. We've got Heung-min Son here as well, who I think is an interesting punt. Again, if we're talking about players who are good on the counter-attack, playing against high lines of teams like Arsenal and Man City, Son is another player who's got a very good record against both Arsenal and Manchester City, particularly Manchester City. So although Son seems a little bit risky, he's not scored too many points this season, he's not been himself from last season, we do still know that there is a top quality player there, and maybe taking a punt on him now could pay off. I'm not saying it's going to pay off, but it's definitely something that you could consider, particularly if you find yourself unable to get to Harry Kane without ripping up your team, removing players that you actually want to keep. Would you maybe like to go for Son instead? You know, for example, say you've got Darwin Nunez and you've got Salah in your team, and you actually want to keep Darwin Nunez, but you want to remove Salah, then maybe it makes more sense for you to go for Son. But if you want to make 2 transfers, then maybe you can move your budget around a little bit and try and get Harry Kane in the forward position. But it's going to be different depending on different people, and I think there is going to be some opportunity for Son there. Now, 2 other players that I've got on this list that I'm not fully convinced by myself, but I will talk about them anyway, is Perisic and Doherty. 2 players who are obviously playing for the Spurs defence, which is not particularly amazing. It's a defence that is not keeping too many clean sheets this season. A lot of worries there, and playing against 2 teams that are tough, Arsenal and Man City. We expect both of these teams to score against Spurs, so therefore clean sheets are pretty unlikely in this double game week for our Spurs defenders. We often see as well with players like Perisic and Doherty, when they're playing against teams who actually play a very high line, Perisic and Doherty actually find themselves often a little bit further back, a little bit pushed further back. They don't get as much time on the ball. They don't get to spend as much time in those super advanced areas, you know, inside the box, on the outside of the box. You know, they don't have as much freedom to take those shots on, and it's more about the counter-attacking abilities of players like Kane and Son. Maybe Kulusevski there as well, if he's available, who's probably the last player who maybe I should mention. Don't know the availability of Kulusevski still. If it turns out he's available for this game week, then yes, he obviously comes in and becomes an option, I guess. But, you know, Kane for me is the only real strong contender for a pick from Spurs for the double game week. Son is a bit of a punt. I don't really like Perisic or Doherty, but I did want to throw them in there as potential options you can go for. Certainly I would be keeping them if I already had them. Okay, so with all of the teams covered, let's go through the top 10 picks for Game Week 20. So these are my top 10 players that I would like to transfer in this game week. You can see a couple of Man City defenders in there. We've got the likes of Rashford and Shaw. Haaland obviously at the top, number 1. And I've got Kane slightly higher than De Bruyne. Even though De Bruyne does typically play well against the difficult opponents, Harry Kane has got a great record against both Man City and Arsenal as well. So I think Harry Kane could be slightly better of an option than De Bruyne if you're able to restructure your team without taking too many hits. Again, guys, pretty much any of these players in the top 5, 6, 7, maybe top 8 of these players, I would be willing to take a -4 for each of these players. I would be removing the likes of, Cancelo, who I don't think is going to play both games. So, you know, if you've got a Cancelo and you want to move him to a Shaw or a Stones or an Ake, I would be making that move. Yeah, like I say, -4s for these players work well. And I feel like if you can get to 5 players from this list, then I think you're going to be in a very, very good position indeed. If you can get to 6 players from this list, you're going to be in a phenomenal position. But I would say that if you can get to, 5 players that you see in front of you right now, by only taking maybe a -4 or less, then I think you're going to be in a fantastic position. I think you're going to be really looking forward to Game Week 20, and I think you'll absolutely smash it. These are my favourite players for Game Week 20 that I'll be transferring in right now if I were you, and I will be transferring in some of these players as well this game week, so we'll talk about that later on in the week. But yes, there you go. There are my top picks for Game Week 20. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. If you did enjoy, please do leave a like. Please do subscribe as well if you're new around here. Plenty more content to come throughout the week. We're kind of slightly delayed on content this week just because I had to get a new microphone and I also have COVID. So, yeah, a weird weekend for me, but never mind, we're back on the content grind right now anyway, and hopefully we can get some good stuff out for double game week, because double game weeks are very, very exciting. I absolutely love them. I know you guys love them as well, and let's see how much we can take advantage of this one. So that's it from me today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you later, mates. Bye bye.